Tom, SAS Recruit 19. For anyone that was watching SAS Who Dares Wins on Channel 4, you made it all the way to the last day, and we'll get into that. But you're also you're a fitness enthusiast in any way. If you're following Tom on social media already or Instagram, you'll see that the guy is, if he's not in the gym, he's on some mountain or he's doing some run. He's an all-around fitness enthusiast and a business owner. So, and as a business owner myself, I understand that the pressures of running a business and then actually doing all of the extra work that he does in activity and just like the way he lives his life is it's I suppose it's admirable to see, because a lot of people would find that hard. Like, I know a lot of business owners that are stressed out and not in shape and not healthy, and then you've proved that it is doable to be that. And then just for kind of for reference for people, like how I met Tom was I sat beside him at a wedding. I actually think you sat beside my wife at the wedding. And it was just casually dropped into conversation that he was on SAS, which is the show I watch every year. I was like, "Sorry, you did what?" And but he couldn't tell me. He wouldn't, because obviously I hadn't aired yet, so he wouldn't tell us anything. So we tried to get him drunk and we tried to get words out of him, but like he held tough. So Tom, thanks for being on the show. And for people like, obviously business owner into fitness, what is it about fitness that keeps you, that it like kind of just motivates you to keep doing it and keep challenging yourself? Like, how long have you been doing fitness? Is it something that's new to you, or have you always been into fitness?
So I've been into fitness since I first left school, really. I wasn't really into it during school. I wasn't very good at any sport. I would always actually skip like the PE lessons. I'd be like, "Oh no, I don't want to get involved with that. I'm not interested at all." So I was never really into sport. Then when I left school, I found that actually I had a bit of a knack. So I would never train, but then as soon as I would start running, I would suddenly be outrunning all these people that do sport on a regular basis. Yeah. And I just suddenly found that I had quite a good base level of fitness, I guess, quite naturally. So I'm quite lucky, I guess, in that regard. I mean, I say I wasn't into sport. I loved skateboarding. So I was always out skateboarding on the weekends and the evenings, but I didn't do your typical, what you would call sport, as you think of as a young lad, like football or rugby. But skateboarding I always did. But yeah, it's just something I've always enjoyed since the age of like 16, 17, whether it's running or going to the gym. Just something I've always enjoyed doing.
And just in regards to like going into the what was the inspiration, and what kind of got you to do SAS or sign up or apply for SAS?
I've always loved the show, similar to yourself. So it's a show I've always watched right from the first series. And I remember getting a phone call when it first came out, first episode, first series, and I didn't even know it was on TV. I'd never heard of it. I remember my mum phoning me going, "Thomas, there's this TV show we watched last night, me and your dad. It's right up your street. Like, I think, you'll love it. You've got to watch it. It's great." And then that was it. I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll give it a go." Watched it. I was hooked immediately. I just love the whole concept of what it's about, which is personal development, really. That's what it boils down to, and just how far you can push yourself physically and mentally, which is something I've always been fascinated with since a young age, is how far you can push it and how capable you can be.
And I think it's a kind of a personality trait as well for a lot of people that want to see and challenge themselves to see what's possible. So obviously you applied, you got on. What was the kind of initial nerves when you were like, "Oh, I'm actually doing this now"?
Well, so I applied the previous year and I didn't get on. So I actually applied and I didn't make the cut. I got through quite a few of the interview stages and then I just pretty much got ghosted. So I didn't hear anything back. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not on. And the next thing I knew, it was being aired on TV. So I was like, oh, clearly I didn't make the cut then.
Yeah.
But same with anything in life. Like you take your failures, but you can't let them keep you down. You've got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go again. And I was really disappointed when I didn't get on because I'd got quite far through the process. And I was very close to not applying again, but like I say, you've got to pick yourself up, and you can't fear rejection and failure. So I thought I'm going to go for it again.
Yeah.
It was actually my wife Helen that was really pushing it. Like, she was like, "I think you'll get on. I really think you'll get on." And it was over 30,000 people apply, and I thought, well, you know, you've got to be in it, so why not try again? Went through the process again, and then, yeah, like you say, getting that phone call after jumping through so many hoops. And then I was out with the dogs on my own, and my phone went, and it was one of the producers, and they said, "How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. As you know, we've been really impressed with you throughout the interview stage. We think you're a great guy. We would love to invite you onto the course." And I didn't know what to say. I was like,
yeah,
okay, so what? As in, like, you want me on there? Like, I'm on the show. Yep, you're on. If you still want your spot, we're leaving in 3 weeks. And I was just in total shock. I didn't know what to say. So I just said, "I think this is the best phone call I've probably ever had. Thank you. Count me in."
Yeah.
So that was the initial thing. And then it took a bit of time for it to like start sinking in, really. It was about a week before I left that I really started feeling nervous. I'm thinking, okay, like, I'm actually leaving in a week. And I didn't know where I was going. I was just told there'll be a taxi at your front door, 11 a.m. on this day, and it'll be taking you to Heathrow Airport, and that is all we're telling you. So I had no idea what country I was going to. Like, all I knew is I was going to be away for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, madness.
And then, like, I know for anyone who, like, the first day we see, because obviously you were in isolators, COVID and all that.
Yeah.
But you were on that bus in the desert, and next thing you know, like, all these jeeps kept pulling up. Like, what was that when your first initial meeting with the DSs, and like they're screaming and shouting? Was like, because you kind of know it's a show, but it's still quite full on.
Yeah, I think you forget it's a show. So I forgot it was a show after the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I was totally in like survival mode in the first 2 minutes, because they jumped out of those jeeps, screaming in your face, tipping water over you, pushing your face down in the sand, kicking sand on you, and like screaming and shouting. And suddenly it's like, it's very real then. Yeah. And especially when you've just come out of isolation for 10 days because of COVID. So you've had all that downtime, reading books, like all that sort of downtime, like reflecting on where you've come and like what it's going to be like on the course. Suddenly, like, you're thrown into that. It was just mental, and I very quickly forgot about any cameras or anything. It was just survival mode. And I am not going to lie, and I didn't know this at the time, but since speaking to other recruits, that run they made us do where we were doing burpees in the sand, crawling over the dirt, we were running through the desert to get to the initial camp. So it hadn't even started yet. We hadn't been issued our numbers or kits. And I honestly felt like if I had a number, I would probably be giving it in that. Like, I felt like, should I be here? Like, my heart rate, because of the heat of the desert, my heart rate spiked. I couldn't get my breath. And I was like, what am I doing here? This is like... I was in my head. I did have doubts immediately, like, should I be doing this? But then when I spoke to other recruits, they were all like, "Oh my god, what am I doing? I don't think I can do it." So yeah.
Oh no. So you couldn't quit because you hadn't started.
Yeah, it was literally like, I would quit, but I haven't given a number yet, so I don't know how to quit.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And over the course of the whole thing, and like, you made it all the way through to the very end, to the last episode, what we seen of 6 hours.
Yeah.
You had what, 168 hours or something? Or even more than that?
Yeah.
What was the toughest day or the toughest part for you? Like, what was the, oh shit, this is just, I'm breaking here?
Okay, so there's probably two moments. One was the car challenge that we had to do, the driving ambush. Obviously, that was quite triggering for me. Having been in quite a serious car accident, and if you've watched the show, you've seen it. You know my reasons for being there.
Yeah.
That was very difficult, not physically but emotionally. It was very tough to deal with. So that's probably the one point where I really did think like deadly serious about going home. And after that task, I remember being sat in the car going back to the camp, and one of the other recruits, Dylan, put his arm around me. He's like, "Are you all right, mate?" And I was like, "I really just want to go home and see my wife and see my dogs, and I just don't want to be here." But I gave myself 15 minutes when I got back to the camp just to be on my own and just think about what I'm doing. And once I collected my thoughts on that, I was okay.
Yeah.
I didn't make any rash decisions. physically the hardest thing, this might surprise you, but physically the hardest thing was the interrogation phase, which is the phase where I left the process. So yes, it was tough mentally. And when I chose to leave, if you were to ask me whether it was physical or mental that I left, I would have to say it was a mixture of both.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, one part of fitness I've always neglected is flexibility, and I've always underestimated the power of it. I've never really cared. I've never stretched. It's never bothered me until they sat me cross-legged. And man, that was it. Like, I cannot describe the pain I was in. So it actually turned out afterwards, I saw a physio afterwards, and I had tore both hip flexors from sitting cross-legged. So I was in so much physical pain that I completely lost my head. I was in there hours on end, hooded, loud screaming babies, all sorts of noises bearing in your ears, starving, hungry, no sleep. And it got to the point where the physical pain got too much, and then I lost my head and forgot where I was and all sorts. So that was probably the hardest point for me.
And like, just for people for reference, like there was pictures then after of you on crutches, like proper full on injury, like cross-legged. Like, you gotta, like, I think for people listening, this was the last day of how many horrible days with little to no sleep.
10 days worth.
You said like 600 calories or 800 calories a day. And 10 days, and then put into a position where you literally tore muscles. And ended up on crutches because of it. So it was like a legit injury that happened.
I was in, like, you know, I kept like finding myself in tears from the physical pain. And I kept, every time, like, you could hear kind of over the noises in your ears, you could hear the door to the cabin thing slamming every now and again. And I honestly would be praying to God they were going to change the stress position. I was like, I just can't sit like this. Please, like, and it just never came. They I think they found my weakness, and they really like doubled down on it and went hard on it. There was no let up at all. It was like, because I actually, so probably not supposed to, but I actually saw the medic after the first 2 hours. So they pulled me in to see the medic because I was in that much pain, and she said, "You've got two options. You can go back in, or you can leave. It's up to you. Like, there's no. What do you want me to do?" My hips were in so much pain, and I said, "I'll go in and see how I get on, but I just can't sit cross-legged like that." And I went back in, and I thought I'd been back in for another 2 hours when I left. She was like, "No, you've done 10. Like, you went in for another 8 hours after you saw me." Wow. So, but I lost all concept of time. I thought it'd only been a couple of hours, but it'd been like eight further hours. So like, even that, just knowing that that's what happened, knowing that you put up with it, and what for you thought was a small amount of time was like, what, 4 times the time, like 8 hours versus 2. That's because I see, I'd like, it's like, you know, like Susan's, like, my wife's been saying to me, you should enter the Irish one and all this stuff, and I was like, I would physically break, because my body, like, I get injuries all the time. It's something that I like to do. I'm more of I like sitting on the couch, having my chocolate, watching you in pain. Then I'm like, I know that guy, I can relate to that guy. No, I can't. But I don't know. Maybe 1 year I might throw it. I might register and see what happens. But like, for you, what would be then on the course? Like, what was the biggest shock for you, just as a personal, like, personally for you? What did you find other than flexibility? And I hope you've started your yoga training all the time, every day, every morning, every evening. Honestly, it's a massive thing I do now.
What was the biggest shock, or like kind of takeaway to biggest shock to you, to your system, of just about you in general? Like, you're like, oh, like, fuck me, what was this like? A realization for you? What would that like?
So probably, like, it sounds bad, but probably how calm I stayed most of the time. Like, I felt very in control of my emotions, and I guess because I've suffered with mental health in the past, and I've seen psychologists for it, and I've had help for it. So I've learned, and through that, learned quite a lot about the human brain and how it works.
Yeah.
And I had never really since then been put in like a real stressful position, like lack of sleep, lack of food, being screamed at, physically exerted, and then being asked to think quickly on the spot and look after fellow team members as well. It was all a lot to deal with, which is why people start dropping off, because it just all becomes too much. And I just found that I felt very sort of in control of my decisions, very in control of what was going on. And I almost surprised myself. I think like the episode before last, when we were out in the desert all through the night, sort of following maps and stuff, doing the escape and evade.
Yeah.
Some people were struggling to keep up. And I sort of said to the group, look, we need to wait. Let's stay as a team. Let's do this. And I think watching it back as well, I just thought, there's a lot of times where I seemed quite with it and understood what was going on and reacted in quite a sensible way, considering how tired and fatigued I was. So, yeah, I think that surprised me the most. Yeah. And
like, as you say, just saying, watching it back. So I'm sure, like, watching it back for you, like, how was that experience watching? Like, because obviously they edited very well.
Yeah.
And they probably left stuff in or didn't put stuff in. You're like, that should have been in there. But like watching it back for you, because they like, how was that experience? Because that's an experience on itself, watching back like what you went through.
So doing the actual course, so being in Jordan and doing the course was amazing. I absolutely loved. Apart from sitting cross-legged, I loved every moment of it. Watching it back, you might be surprised to hear I didn't overly enjoy it.
Really?
I didn't really. I enjoyed, like, if I could have been watching it on my own. So if they said to you, "Oh, by the way, we recorded that experience, and you can watch it back if you like," then yeah, I'd have probably enjoyed it. But being on TV and knowing that everyone else is watching it as well, it wasn't an experience I liked, and I wouldn't want to go on TV again. It was one of those things that I couldn't relax for the 6 weeks it was on. Every week I was anxious about what was going to be shown, how it was going to be interpreted, what my family were going to think, what my friends were going to think, even what people that don't know me were going to think about me. So I didn't really enjoy that experience. But in terms of actually watching it back, the editing is very frustrating because, and I won't go into any details about how certain things were edited.
Yeah.
My God, sometimes I was watching it, I was like, that's definitely not the order that happened. And that definitely come across like that at the time. So they are very good at the editing and they can edit it however they want, really. So
so what we see and then your experience are like, we don't really get a full insight into the experience because I suppose it is a TV show and it's there for entertainment purposes. But there's another side to the show that you guys and your crew and I suppose that's like when you endure something so physically and mentally hard, and I think this is the same in a lot of different endeavors, but what you guys went through, I'm sure like it creates a bond because you've all suffered through something. That there's a bond that no one else, and even all the other seasons don't have the bond that you have because it's your bond. Like, how did you find that with the other contestants on the show? Like, did you find that there's a bigger bond with you guys now? Are you still in contact with a bunch of the guys? And how was that?
So the bonds form very quickly in that sort of situation where you're living with someone 24/7 and you're also being pushed, like you say, physically and mentally. And what they do very well is they're very quick to strip you back of everything. So you go in there and the only things you're allowed to take in are 2 pairs of boxers, toothbrush and toothpaste, and that's it. So you're stripped of everything. You're given all your kit. Everyone's got the same stuff. So you're all on a like even playing field. But because they beast you so much on the first few days, some of the workouts they gave us that weren't shown on the show were just brutal. Like there was one that was like 2 hours long and they said it's not going to stop until someone goes. And I couldn't believe it, but all 20 of us were left at the end, and they actually said we're going to have to call it a night. Go on, piss off back to bed, and no one quit. And I remember at that point thinking, this is a tough bunch. Like this season, there's a tough lot here. And so you form that bond quite quickly because you're all suffering together. You all have to pull together and help each other. And I think because you're so stripped back, you end up being quite vulnerable. And that's what the show's about. They want people that are quite open to be vulnerable. So because you're in that vulnerable state, you get to know people very quickly. I probably spoke to people in there more openly than I spoke to some of my closest friends. So it was stuff that they knew about me before my closest friends even knew. Which is just
I suppose, like when you go through a process like that and you meet people, and like you say, you're brought back down to your basics of your adjust the body, whether you've all had the same stuff. The guys that are running the show really don't care. They have a job to try and make you quit. And then when you endure through something, and I suppose it's kind of like when you like growth, like you learn that kind of only true growth happens when you are uncomfortable or made to feel uncomfortable, because that's like how you grow a muscle. You want to get a bigger muscle, you have to lift a weight, and like it's easy, you have to lift a bigger weight, and that's how you get strength and build muscle. And it's the same with mentally, physically. And I suppose the course, like that was possibly the ultimate growing like test of your mental fortitude, physical fortitude. Like what will break first, if any of them break, and how long can you keep going? Like, and that it's an amazing test. What would be the biggest takeaway for you about you? What did you learn about yourself the most at the end of all of that?
Yeah, it would have to be that, as I kind of touched on it before, like my almost emotional intelligence, because I made and I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was after I quit, I gave my number in and I was happy with my decision. And in the past, I would have felt like, oh, you're really weak if you quit. Oh, like you can't quit. What are people going to think of you? And those thoughts did go through my head before I quit. Don't get me wrong. I had 100 times in my head. There were things, all sorts of things going around in my head. My body wanted me to quit so badly because I was in so much pain that I kept thinking something really bad's happened to a family member, and they're not telling you because they don't want to spoil your experience. And no one from the family has phoned the show to tell them, but you need to go. You need to speak to your family. Something really bad has happened. So I was almost like trying to trick myself into reasons to leave. And I kept saying, no, you're being stupid. Nothing's happened. Everyone's all right. And then I kept worrying about my business because I hadn't obviously been running the business for a few weeks because I've been away. Start thinking, oh, something really bad's happened in the business. You need to just get out and get your phone and sort that out. So there's all sorts of things. But I think it was the emotional intelligence I showed to actually quit when I did. And I'm glad I quit when I did. And I think it was a very sort of grown up, I guess, decision to be like, okay, I'm in a lot of physical pain here. I'm probably doing some damage, which turns out I did. And I don't want to be here anymore. So at that point, me leaving was more important to me than getting to the end. So it was like, it wasn't, I was just pleased that I made that decision because I'm quite a stubborn person. When I put my mind to something, I'm all in on it and I don't quit easy. So in a weird way, it kind of, the thing I learned the most about me was from that decision to leave, which I think was a good decision.
And you got to, like, my hat is off to you. You got to the final stage, like the main, like that is one of the toughest ones. That I think most people can't even get to, or because of what's coming, they would quit. So just on a lighter side, are the DSs as mean on the show as they are in real life?
It's hard. So because you're filmed 24/7, there's no like let up. So there's never a time where there's downtime ever. It is never like, oh, we're chilling now. Like the cameras aren't here. So you're followed everywhere with a camera, and then on base is just cameras planted all over the place. So it's like Big Brother. So there's no downtime. So are they in a character? They probably are a little bit. But then I guess if you went into a real military setting, then they're kind of in character because they're not going to be speaking to you like in the pub the same as they are to the people that are coming in. So it kind of is like they're playing a role a little bit. I've spoken to all of them since leaving the course.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're totally different now when I speak to them than they were when I tried to speak to them when I was there.
Yeah.
So they don't grab me by the scruff of the neck and scream in my face. So yeah, but they're tough guys. They're really tough. I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, I've seen two of them, Billingham and Foxy, on TV a lot. Yeah. The other two, the first time
The brand new guy, yeah.
was when they got up on that stage. The presence and aura they have is quite intimidating, and you immediately have a lot of respect for them, and you think, I'm not going to step out of line here.
Because like one of the things I noticed this year versus last year, the seasons, is this year they were more verbally brutal. Like they call you like an idiot. Like they were like brutal with what they were saying to people. Like, so you fucking numpty and all this. And like in all fairness, it made for great TV because I was laughing. I was like, you say that. But yeah, like from the previous years, it seemed that they were allowed kind of just go to town on you a little bit, and you had to be able to like take it. And if you made a mistake, you got shoot. Especially Billy. He was a brilliant. Yeah, like it was, like obviously you probably weren't finding it that funny at the time, but it's entertaining sitting on the couch with my hot cup of tea.
So one of the other recruits, the first day when we got off that bus and our faces were down in the sand, and Foxy was going around lifting people's heads up, like pulling them up and like staring at them in the face and shoving your face back down in the sand. You didn't really get to see any of it. But one of the other recruits, I won't say who it is, but he's got a particularly big head, and it was quite noticeable. Like he's got a big head, and my face was down in the sand, like along with everyone else's. And he was putting people's heads up, and then all you heard was Foxy go, "Fucking hell, you got a big head!" And I was literally, and I laughed so much that I spat all the sand like went up in my face. And and then he gave us all a beasting for laughing. But like it was like from immediately he was like commenting on the way people looked or the size of their head, and you just immediately it just started straight away. It was like right, we're going in on you all. So.
Because that's what that was one of the first things I noticed was they were it was like they were allowed off the leash a little bit more.
Yeah.
In regards to what they could say to you, which again, I suppose it builds more entertaining, but it's more real to life, I suppose.
That's what it would be
in a military setting. If you make a mistake or you're not doing what you're told, they're going to grill you hard, and they're allowed to say what they want. They should be allowed to say what they want because you're trying to join or go through what the special forces training like. So you need a thicker skin, I suppose.
Definitely, just don't take it personally.
Yeah. And one of the you've kind of already answered, but one of my things is would you ever do it again? And as you said, no, you would not do it again.
It's I think it's a once in a lifetime thing. I would like to think now I've worked on flexibility and stuff for a few months, and I'm feeling good. I would love to try it again. I think up until that point, I think I was quite a strong recruit. You know, I was always the DS spoke highly of me. I never really got shouted at or screamed at in my face too much. And I was always, up at the front of the pack on any of the physical stuff. So, and I felt mentally I was quite switched on there as well. So I felt like and I'll be honest, going into the interrogation, you've been out on escape and evade, and everyone was starving, hungry, everyone was fatigued. And I looked around and everyone looked really tired and fatigued. And I actually felt surprisingly strong. And I felt confident going into interrogation. I knew that was like almost like the final phase then. And I thought, if I get through interrogation, I've got a really good shot here. Like I know the DS think highly of me. I know that I'm doing well and I'm performing. I've got a really good shot at actually like completing the whole thing and maybe winning this.
Yeah.
And like I say, they took you into the thing. Who did you? Blah, blah, blah. Sit you down, sat me cross-legged, and within 5 minutes, I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. And I think Mike Tyson's got a saying, like, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
That sitting cross-legged was the punch to the face for me. Yeah, it was like everything was going so well and so smooth up until that point. Every task I'd really done well. And then it was like, wow, this is a game changer. So, yeah.
No, like, again, my hat's off to you. You did it. like watch, and because obviously this is the first time I've ever watched the show and knew a guy on the show, so obviously we were like, oh, how's Tom, dude? And oh, we were like all like gung ho, and we didn't want nothing bad to happen to you and stuff like that. But you got all like, I remember watching the final. I remember going into the umpire, and I was like, oh man, I said he must have been really fucked. But I thought at the time, I thought it was you just went, oh, no, I can't do this anymore. But then obviously, then I seen that it was your hips, and I seen the crutches and stuff like that, and like. Yeah, you showed true emotional intelligence. Go like if you tried to hold on, you wouldn't have completed the last task because you couldn't get up the walk.
And that's what, like, because they do the show provide you with psychologists afterwards, like as aftercare.
Yeah,
you know. And at first I was really disappointed that I didn't get to the end, and she said exactly what you just said. She said, well, and she was the second person I saw after leaving the course. So you literally like leave. I saw the doctor, and then the second person you sit down with is. So I was still in my boiler suit from the interrogation when I sat down with the psychologist. So you see them quite quick after.
Yeah.
She said, she was like, look, you wouldn't have been able to carry on anyway. Like you can hardly walk. Like you're done. Like it's fine, but you made the right decision. You shouldn't have stayed. We all thought you were going to leave hours ago because they all watch it in the studio thing behind the scenes and that. And they were like, we thought you were gone hours ago after you saw the medic. So you've done really well. And she said, and you're the last man as well. And I was like, what do you mean? She said, oh, it's just women left. Like all the men have gone. And I was like, well, and I guess out of all the men you think that applied for that show, I was the last guy there. Yeah. So, you know, it's still a great achievement, I think.
It is. Like, look at getting on it and doing it and getting even getting a couple of days in. I think just having the balls, and I know there's women on the show too, but like general term, but having the balls to do that and put yourself in that position, that situation where you are literally nothing but a number.
Yeah.
And you, even if you do everything right, you're going to get beaten up and beasted, and like there's no winning with the show, because the whole point is how hard. If you can do it, we'll do it harder, and if you break, we'll try and break you more, and we'll do it until you quit. That's the goal of the show.
It's basically like they would give you a beasting, and if you're at the front of the pack, they would scream at you and call you a show off and punish you. If you were in the middle, they would say, you're just playing it safe, you can do better than that, and then punish you for that. If you're at the back, they would say, you're lazy and shit, so do it again. And it's like, you can't win. No matter what you do, you're in the wrong. So it makes it impossible.
Oh, man. But look, it was... and like since you've done the show, you like, if again, like, from, because obviously I follow you on Instagram, like you've done the fan dance. You like, you're always off hiking, doing runs in the gym. So like, do you have a whole other kind of concept of pushing yourself and challenging yourself after doing that show? Or that is it still the same that you're just constantly trying to achieve more?
Yeah, that's quite a hard thing to answer. I'm not sure. I guess I feel slightly different since doing the show. It's given me a lot of confidence. Yeah. So it sort of built my confidence up, and I got more confidence in my ability than I did have before. I got more self-belief. I've always enjoyed pushing myself, so that's always been a thing. But I guess now I've done something on that sort of scale, I feel like I need to be going bigger and better. So it's I guess it's given me bigger goals.
And have you got a challenge, a new ridiculously hard challenge in mind, or are you still working on them?
Well, yeah, there's a few I'm working on, but the challenge for me is I've got a ultra marathon booked for February next year. Okay. Which is going to be my first ultra marathon. So it's 34 miles, but it's like 6,000 feet of elevation, trail running on coastal paths. Okay. And I've ran this actual event before, but I've done the half marathon version of it. So they do like a 10K, half marathon, and then an ultra. But I've just jumped from the half straight to the ultra, and I've booked it for February. Okay. So I've got a bit of time to train. That's my next sort of.
And I think with that, like I did an ultra last year. That is mental more so than anything else. And if you can do 10 days in the Jordanian desert.
Yeah.
Pretty sure, unless you like blow a hamstring, you'll be able to complete this challenge. No problem.
Yeah.
You'll be good at it.
Cool.
You'll be good
Yeah.
at it. The other thing I like to like kind of talk to you about a little bit, because you use it's even in your profile, is that you're a mental health advocate, and as you say, you've had your own personal issues in the past. Like, what would you think is the kind of, like, we live in a society that has convenience, like everything I can get everything from a phone.
Yeah.
I've convenience to beat the band. We've literally tried to take adversity out of people's lives to make life so much easier. But yet mental health is getting worse. And me personally, I kind of believe it's because we're not constantly being tested through some sort of challenge or mental adversity, that when smaller things happen, we are having bigger breakdowns because we don't have to deal. Like for you, and obviously because you've gone through stuff, and you know more people probably because you're more a big advocate for it. Like, where do you see the bigger problem for, just like obviously the UK nation, or like this people in general, that it seems to be becoming a bigger problem, but we have more solutions to fix it, but it's still getting bigger? It's like, I suppose it's like the obesity rate. Everyone's getting bigger, but yet there's more gyms in the world than there's ever been.
Yeah.
So where for you would you see do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of different things. I definitely think that mental health is talked about more now, which is good. So people are more aware of it, which is good, which could also kind of link into why there are more people suffering with mental health, because there's a bigger understanding of it. People now almost not self-diagnosed, but understand that that's what's happening. So it appears like it's more. Maybe it used to be just as much, but it was just hidden, and just people just didn't admit to it or didn't deal with it. I don't think social media helps particularly. I'm very hot and cold with social media. So sometimes I love it and sometimes I really don't. Yeah. And my Instagram will sometimes be very busy, and then there'll be a few weeks where I'm like, I need a bit of time away from this now, and I'm just going to do my own thing in the background and get on with life. But yeah, I think social media, I think there's a big, it puts a lot of pressure on people, especially young women and young men, like the younger generation, I think, to look a certain way, be into certain things, be doing certain things, when actually, like, you just need to do what makes you happy and not worry about what anyone else is doing. Yeah. For me, it's being outdoors, it's taking part in sports, it's lifting weights. It's also running my business. I actually enjoy it. It brings a lot of stress. It's always like a worry, but it's like, it's good, it's fun, it's exciting, and it's challenging. So it keeps me going. It's not just 9 to 5, like almost like mind numbing with my brain. It's similar to the physical side. It's keeping me active and keeping me sharp up here. But yeah, I would have to agree with you. I think it's that in the society we live in, that people don't tend to face as much adversity now because everything is so easy compared to what it maybe was like before. Yeah. When things do come up, they don't have the right tools and they don't have the right knowledge to deal with it, which causes bad mental health, I guess, anxieties, depressions, worry. It's all a form of mental health, isn't it?
It is. And one thing, because you touched on with the younger generation are getting it harder because they're just not used to being challenged or going through it. And one of the things with social media, and I literally only said this to our teen strength camp, was last week. And I said, it was about gratitude. I was trying to get them to be grateful for the fact that their parents drive them to the gym, they pay for them to be here, and then don't waste the opportunity. And I was like, I got them to kind of, what I want you to do is when you get home, pick one of your parents, give them a hug and say, thank you for everything, and then walk out of the room. It's not about you. It's about just thanking them, and you don't have to justify why. Just do it. And I said, if you don't, I'll be texting all your parents tomorrow and anyway to find out whether you got a hug or not. And a lot of the parents were like, I thought he was up to something. I thought he did something wrong. They're not. It was so out of the norm. Yep. But then that led me to think about something else. And when they all came back in, I spoke to them again. and I spoke about social media. And the reason was like 5 seconds of your day can make someone's day.
Yeah.
But if you flip that, 5 seconds for someone to post a negative comment can ruin your day, week, month if you let it get into your head.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge lesson that for people that are on social media or feel like they're being picked on or isolated or comments been thrown, is that the person that posted that comment 9 times out of 10 is no longer thinking. It was 5 seconds of their day.
Yeah.
And it's now taking charge of your whole day. So they don't care about that comment as much as you. You shouldn't care about their comment too. And teaching that element, I think, is a big lesson for youths to understand. And then it might help, because if like I got trolled there a while back. It was hilarious. He was slagging off a video I did on training.
Yeah.
And I wrote back to him and said, man, I'm so grateful for your feedback. It means a lot to me. I hope you keep doing what you're doing, because all you're doing is serving the universe. I said, I'm truly 100% grateful that you came onto my reel and posted on my reel and made me understand what I was doing wrong and that things that I do are bullshit. You are a true gent and the savior of this world. And I never got at him back from him because he just got shut down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I kind of get off on that a little bit. It's like, oh, yeah, you're going to have a go, are you? Oh, I'm going to kill you with kindness. Going to kill you.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the way to do it. It's, yeah. I think that people are very conscious about what other people think of them.
Yeah.
And in fact, you asked me earlier what my biggest takeaway was from it. And actually, I think the biggest lesson came from nobody, and not in a negative way, but nobody cares about you as much as you think they do. They really don't. Like, everyone is caught up in what they're doing and their own lives and their own insecurities and worries. Because I didn't get to the end of the course, and there's a lot of people who know me who thought I would have. And I felt like there was a lot of pressure. And before that last episode, the week leading up to it, I found I couldn't train very well. I couldn't concentrate on work. I think I had 4 takeaways in a week, which just isn't like me. I just wasn't eating properly. I felt tired all the time. And I was so anxious and stressed about that last episode being aired, and people see me not finish. And I thought, oh my God, everyone's going to think I'm weak. Everyone's like, it's going to be a huge thing. Oh my God, did you see Tom didn't get to the end? And it got shown, it got aired. My phone went crazy with people saying, well done, mate, hold your head up high, you did incredible. And then by the end of Monday, like, that was it. People were back at work, people were getting on with their lives. It was just like, it didn't matter. It wasn't important. And I built it up to be this huge thing, and it affected me for the week. And I think if you spend your time worrying about what other people are going to think about you, or worrying about failures you might have, or the way you look, or whatever it is, people don't care about it as much as you think they do. That is a huge thing I learned from that show. For me, it was like the biggest one I've ever done in my life. It was a huge challenge. It was on national TV. It was just like epic in my life. But to everyone else, it was just like, oh yeah, Tom's on again on Sunday. It'd be interesting to see how he got on. Oh, we're busy. We'll record it and watch it on Tuesday. It wasn't a big thing. So people don't care as much as you think.
That's the best way I've heard that. The best way to explain that, or the way it was said to me before, is you are the star in your movie. Yeah. Everyone else is an extra.
Yeah.
So anything I do, no matter how big I do it, or whatever challenge I take on, or whatever I do with my business or my family, no one else cares, or will, like you say, will care as much as you do, because you're only an extra in theirs.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, that's a bit harsh, but no, it's fact. That's true. Yeah. Like people move on from everything. And like, I'm sure, like when you completed a challenge, like personally yourself, like with the SAS, or with like doing, like when you do the ultra, like you probably weren't given the time to think with the SAS coming to the final few days, because you're constantly, but like for me, I have a big swim this summer. Yeah, I've already planned my next year's challenge.
Yeah,
I haven't even finished training or completed the task. And when I did the ultra, it was the same thing. What's next? Yeah. Before I finished that one, it's like when you're reading a book and you want to start a new book.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I could just start. But like, oh, you got to finish this book. I want to start. And because it's just, you're like, and I think that type of personality is good. But yeah, like people don't, you're just an extra in someone else's story.
Yeah. And that's something I've learned over since it's been on, and I found real peace with it. And it's made me feel so much better about my life, because now I'm like, the only people that the only people that matter really is what you think of yourself. Like, if you can wake up and look in the mirror and be like, I'm proud of what I do on a day-to-day basis, and I'm proud of how I behave and treat others, then that's all that matters. Like, nothing, everything else is just noise. It's like, obviously you've got your family and stuff, but again, even to your parents or your children, like, they're their own superhero in their movie. Like, it's them, and you're the dad, or you're the mum, or you're the daughter or the son, or whatever. So it was just a huge thing for me, and a realization, and it's really helped me, and I feel totally different. And it really was like a big black cloud, like being lifted, like a huge weight. I woke up on the Tuesday after the last episode that was aired on the Sunday, and I was like, oh my God, I feel so relieved that it's all over, and everyone knows I didn't win, and no one actually cares. Like, no. And had I got to the end, my phone would have blown up with people going, oh, wow, well done, mate, you passed it, that's amazing. You go back to work the next day, and it's forgotten about. It's like they're thinking about what their plans are for the next weekend or next week. So,
and that's human nature. And like you say, like, if you can handle that, and I think that could, like, if you're a young person listening to this, and you're worried about what other people think, if you can get a handle on the fact that it's not important, if it's really not as important as you think it is, and their opinions of you are 100% not important if they're not supporting you. Even if they are supporting you, it's you being comfortable in yourself, being a good human, being, as you say, be kind, helping people when you can, and looking after you and yours. I think that's the kind of the real, as you say, you find peace in it now, and you don't worry about it now as much as you would have back there, like obviously when the show was on. But I think a lot of people need to understand, and I suppose, and I don't know, like, if you agree or disagree with me on this, is that if people learned that more, I'd say there'd be less mental health problems, because most people try and keep doing things to impress or impact upon people, and they're never really going to get what they really think they should, because the other person will just, again, like, here's the thing, if iPhone died today, like literally just shut shop, who would talk about iPhone in a year from now?
No.
Everyone else would have a new phone, a new tablet, a new iMac, a new version of it. We wouldn't talk about iPhone if it was dead. And it's just, we have to move on. You can't, if you end up dwelling on the past, you're only creating a vicious cycle for you, and then you end up hurting yourself doing that.
And that's why you should never ever be afraid of failing either. Never be afraid to fail. Just do your best. If you fail, you don't fail. I know it's cliche, but you don't fail. You learn from it.
Yes.
Right. So I now stretch 20 minutes every morning, 20 minutes every night, and sometimes throughout the day I'll just randomly get on the floor in the office and start stretching. And I do a mobility class every Wednesday evening. So and my running has improved because of that. And now I'm like entering races, and I'm like, okay, actually I'm shaving loads of time off my race times here, and my running's getting better. And it's probably because I'm not so knotted up and tight in my hip flexors and everything. And I've had physio to help with my recovery since being SAS. And I think, so actually now I'm really enjoying my running again, which is why I've entered an ultra, and I've got a few other races coming up that aren't the same distance, but they're all like good races to do. I'm like, okay, I'm really enjoying my running, and I'm getting better at it. And the reason I'm getting better is because I'm working on mobility, and I'm working on leg strength in the gym, and I'm throwing in my running training as well. So I'm like, okay, this is perfect. I wouldn't have been doing mobility and stretching and flexibility if it hadn't have been for SAS. I wouldn't have learned that actually that's a real weak point. And had I not been focusing on it, I'd probably have problems when I was older, because I was so tight. The physios couldn't believe the state of me. So it's just something I've neglected. So I think you just learn. You go through life and you try things, and if it doesn't work, you sort of take stock, look at what you've done, and think, how am I going to do this better now? How am I going to use it to improve? And then you go again, and you fail, and no one cares. Like you think they're going to, and they really don't very much. Like, and if they do, it's for a period of 24 hours or less, and then they're thinking about themselves again. So just don't worry. Any young listeners that do listen, go for it, and don't be afraid to fail. You've got to be in it to win it, and you've got to try.
And if you do that, you will find a community of people that will only be there to help you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's leaving the group of people that you think you want their acceptance, and it's the last thing you want or need in life. But Tom, I've taken up nearly an hour of your time. I know we're going to
quick.
I like it flies through, doesn't it? I love it. So just for you, a question I like to ask everyone: what would be your biggest fear now moving forward for you? And I don't like to say what's your biggest fear, because I think it's more honest to kind of ask that question. And I always say this one, and I'll give you, I was at a course I finished. I just certified in a new mindset coaching, and my fear was always, I won't be the dad to my kids that I want to be. And through a 2-day course, they found out I had issues with my dad for over 40 years since. And my job was I had to ring him yesterday, which I didn't want to do. And I ended up ringing him and having a full on, this is where we're at. And this is why you don't see your grandkids. And this is why we don't talk much. And I need to let you know this, but I also need to let you know that you were a 25-year-old man with 3 kids struggling to raise a family, and you had mental health issues. So I forgive you for that. And it was, again, a huge weight off my phone. So that's what I mean. I don't know. That completely went off what I was asking you.
Yeah, no.
But sure, there you go. I'll cut that out of the show.
Biggest fear, I would say. I'm not sure. My biggest fear probably, and it's not just since the show, it's since the car accident that me and my wife were in. So I set up my business post that. So we had the accident and we both left our jobs. We set up the business. I feel like we have a very good work-life balance now. So there's some weeks, like this week, for example, not so much. It's been more work than it has play.
Yeah.
Although I still got 8 miles in and a sea swim this morning.
Very good.
I've got to make time. So I was up at 5:30. You've got to get it done. So that's something I'll never compromise on ever, is my training. I just never will compromise. At that and sleep, the 2 things I won't compromise. But my biggest fear probably is to lose that feeling of living your life to the fullest and experiencing as much as you can. Because prior to that, all I did was work solidly and stress myself about work all the time. My wife did the same in her job. Our Saturdays were spent feeling shattered from the stressful weeks we had, and then our Sundays were spent worrying about going back to work on Monday, and that was it. And we were too tired to really do much during the week. And I think after the accident, it really changed. And now the whole reason for setting up our mortgage business that we do is that we can be flexible with our lifestyle. So our office that I'm sat in now we're based at home. So we both work from home. We've got an office set up here, and it allows us to have that lifestyle. So this week has been really busy, and I've been working long hours. But last week I worked Monday, Tuesday, and then I must have done about 3 hours work the whole of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We were just going off with the dogs, going for walks, going up on the moors, because we've got that ability now. And I know everyone isn't in that position, but what I would say is I'm really fearful that I would get further down my career path and look back and think, I haven't done anything. And you've got one body and one life. So I think live it healthily and live it doing what you want to do and experiencing as much as you can.
100%. Guys, if you took anything from this show, it's that if you're willing to test yourself, test your mental health, your strength, and you just keep on pushing and challenging yourself to be better, do more, and live an exciting, active lifestyle. If you're Tom is on Instagram, and I'll put your Instagram handle on the bottom of the show notes if you're okay with that. And guys, like I met this guy at a wedding with his bad dance moves. Just so like the guy beside you could be the guy, or you could be the guy beside me next time, or the woman that is doing crazy things, challenging themselves and putting their bodies on the line to test to see what they got. And I think that's admirable. And again, as I said, Tom, my hat is off to you for just for being within the first hour of talking with you, I knew that this guy's a good guy. And then when I started speaking to Helen and stuff, they're just good people because they have a specific way of living, and they're genuine. And in this world, it's hard to find a lot of genuine people. And you and your wife are definitely two of those people.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate you being on show. I know the wedding was back in March. We were meant to have the show a long time. I got quite complacent for a while, but we got it done. And
thanks for having me.
No worries, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, follow the show, and we'll see you on the next one.